Well, I'm Jean, and I live at 64 John Street, Inglewood. But when we first came here, it was 26 John Street, North Maylands. That's in 1928.
Yes, I'm Alison. I'm Jean's sister. I lived in Inglewood house.
But you're just 6 years younger than me.
Yeah, right, okay, that'll do.
Andrew Marr from Scotland, and Kathleen Wilson, she was from Sydney. She had Irish ancestors, and my father had all Scottish, way back forever. They were both very keen on dancing, and there were lots of dance halls around Perth, and it was probably that's where they met. But they met when they were quite young, but then Dad went off to war, to the First World War. And I think he came home a bit of a wreck, and so Mum wouldn't marry him. But he persisted, and they weren't married for 10 years, 1926, and he got home in about 1917. So that's the story. And they lived actually with some friends in Brewer Street, Perth, for many years, or around that area. A lot of the Scottish migrants lived around that East Perth area, and they were all my uncles and aunties. And then I came along in 1928, and Alison came along in 1934. And they came to this house in Inglewood. It was just built. They said they got a new house and a new baby almost the same week. And it was very basic house with, just a front lounge room and a big bedroom. The rooms were very big with high ceilings, and then one other bedroom, and that was it. And a kitchen, big kitchen. But after that, Dad built a sleep out. It was along here. Dad built the sleep out, and when it was hot, we slept out there. So
Or on the grass.
Or on the grass,
on a rug.
But sleep on the lawn then, yeah. We shared a room.
Yeah.
That's my half and that's your half.
And Jean drew a line down the centre because she got sick of me being so much younger, being a bit messy, so I couldn't step over that line. So
I don't remember that.
Oh, I do.
Dad was a very keen gardener. He grew vegetables at the back and roses at the front. Oh, and we used to manure the roses from all the different carts that went around. There was the milkman and the grocer and the baker, and we had stables behind us there. And so he'd go and collect it, and so he didn't take very long to get quite a good garden going. Oh yes, well Dad built a fence halfway. It was a very big block, and he built a fence halfway down and grew a wisteria, and it grew and grew and grew till it was right across the block. And at the certain season of September, it was absolutely covered, and Dad was very proud of his wisteria. Behind the fence that he grew, there'd be potatoes and peas and beans. Anything else? I think that was all. Because I know he used to have to get up early in July and water. We had frost in July, and he would have to get up early and water the potatoes so that they wouldn't burn off. He was very keen on his vegetable garden, assisted by the local horses. Yes, well, it was a funny little, it was a little church and a mob of kids. Everybody went there to everything. And it was built by a man called Watlock from Cornwall in England. And that was there for a long, long time. And then I got so involved in the church and the running of it that I helped organise building a new church. So what they did was to build around, because of plenty of land, and they built over the top of the church that was there, they built a church one side and a hall on the other side, and the other church was sort of between them. And when the time came, they just, within no time, pulled down the church in the middle, and joined them up, and we had this lovely big hall and a church, and it was very, very. Everybody went there, but the problem was that when Union came, it was in an inconvenient place, so it disappeared. It all went, and now I've got photos of us cleaning up the yard up there, but it was a very happy, relaxed place because nobody had cars. So we used to go up the top of Kennedy Hill here, which is quite high, get up the top on a scooter. Well, not electric scooters, at least it had a brake on it. Somebody would stand down the bottom of the hill and say, "It's okay, you can go now," and whoop, you'd whoop down. And Mum said, Mum always knew, and we didn't know how she knew.
And she caught us out and got a bit mad once and said, "I told you not to go up." I was on the little three-wheeler, and she said, "I told you not to go up Kennedy Street Hill because, it's dangerous." And I told Jean, and I thought, how the devil did she know? And then it wasn't for a long time later, this window here, you could see the bottom of the hill and the top of the hill.
Because the houses weren't built there, it was a stable.
It ended back there actually, and Mum could see from the kitchen and see these two kids herring down the hill. Oh dear. Mum would make the Guy Fawkes, and he'd be great big, dressed in Dad's old clothes and everything, and other people would lend things, and he sat on top of the thing, and that was a major thing, the Guy Fawkes.
And the kids used to walk around the streets with their Guy Fawkes in a little cart and ask for a penny for the guy. So that way they got the money to buy their fireworks. But anyhow, this one particular year, the people over in the corner, he cut the whole hedge down, and it built up so big. It was going to be the bonfire to end all bonfires. And the night before, he wasn't around anyway, and somebody set fire to it. And it was an enormous blaze.
Fire.
And everyone was so upset because the whole district came there. But anyway, I think somehow or other they rallied round, and all the dads went round, and they built a big one anyway. But we all used to collect there on bonfire night, and when it all went down, we'd throw potatoes in, so you'd get burnt potatoes, and it was beautiful. It was a treat. But that block there it was funny. I don't know why the street ended in John Street, because a big sand patch, and several times there were people wouldn't know it's finished, and they'd run in and they'd get bogged. So one of Dad's regular jobs was to help them dig out of the bog that they'd been in. But I think he must have complained eventually, and they put a post up with a reflective light. That's as far as they got. But then eventually, I don't know when, that went right through. Well, the trams originally only went to something like 8th Avenue, and there was no roads made, because Mum used to complain about having to take me in a pusher, it was called in those days, through sand to get to 8th Avenue and get onto the tram. But then it went extended from there to about Crawford Road or somewhere. It was a number 17 tram, and it went up, and then it turned around and went back again. And then they extended a little bit further, and that was an 18 tram.
That was to Salisbury Street, wasn't it?
Salisbury, yeah. And we used to catch that to work every day. But when we were kids, and we started off at the North Inglewood School, and then went up to the Inglewood School, which is now Mount Lawley, and we got a penny a day for tram. Only 1 penny. You had to walk one day, one way. So it was very easy to take the tram in the morning, and then in the afternoon you'd give some kid your case, and you'd run home down to corner of 11th Avenue, and they'd throw the case out of the windows. And the trams, I think, mostly cost about threepence to go into town. And I was saving up to go to Britain, and if you went early, I'm not sure how early, before 8:30, it was for the workers, and it was twopence halfpenny. But after that, it was threepence. And when I was saving up, I made sure I saved that halfpenny every day. Well, everybody around the district had their 21st birthday at the little Masonic Hall on the corner of 9th Avenue in Carrington. And it was a very big event, a 21st birthday. You got a key, and you had a band and dancing, and we all wore long dresses. I had a new dress, and which reminds me, my first evening dress was made out of mosquito netting, because it was the war time and there was no material, so Mum made it and it starched the material. And I went up there to that little hall in the Masonic Hall, and I would say 20 of us had birthday parties up there for 21. It was a big event. Nowadays, it just happens. I think, you don't hear people having birthday parties, but I had a lovely dress, and especially made, and I've got photos of it all. And it was a very big occasion. You'd got a key, the key of the door, and somebody had made me a big key out of hollow, that had the big loop on the, and then a long hollow bit, and then the key bit on the end, and you got everybody to write their names on this, and that went into that hollow bit. That was a very important occasion, the 21st birthday.
You still got it?
Oh no, I lost it years ago. I don't know where it went. I got a lovely desk, which has now been promised to my niece, and a lovely bedside table from Alison, and the desk was from Mum and Dad.
Yeah.
And then loads and loads of, perfumes, and I've got a picture of it somewhere. Well, all our leisure activities involved this little church round the corner. Everything we did. We used to have dances, and you weren't supposed to have dances in a Methodist church, but we had one long dance, and they had all sorts of activities there. Concerts. We were always having a concert every time anything was on, and I'd be in the middle of it.
Seeing to be organising it.
People performing and singing and dancing and all sorts of things. And I can remember once we did something very serious over there.
Yeah.
And we had a curtain across, and you and Ronnie Strang were at the back doing ballet, and everybody could see you through there, and it was supposed to be something serious. But everything we did was revolved around the church. We had Sunday school and Christian Endeavour groups, and I don't think we were terribly religious, but just everything that happened in that little church. And concerts, and just, what else did I used to do? My dad worked on the Inglewood clock tower, but he was a plumber, and I'm not sure at what stage he was working there, but I must have been very young because whatever he was doing, I'll talk about that in a minute, our little dog got run over, and he sent a message that Mrs. Ma's dog had got run over, and Dad got it, that Mrs. Ma had been run over, so he nearly had a fit, come tearing out, but found it was the dog. But in those days, that clock tower was a a picture theatre, and it was called I think it was the State and the Piccadilly, and that they in the summertime they had the building, but then they switched the projectors around so that it projected into a garden, and it was I think it was a civic theatre in the Piccadilly Garden or something, and that went on for years and years. And as kids, we used to, in the summertime, take our bikes up and lean them on the wall and stand on them and see some of the films. I don't ever remember it was very interesting, but it was just a bit daredevil. And but that all went, that lovely open air garden. They had to wait till, in the summertime, wait till it was dark enough to show the films. So they must have started quite late, but I don't remember. We used to have permanent seats up there on a Friday night, and the thing was that we had the seats booked, and if it was a show that wasn't suitable, then they cancelled. But they had did I just say that we had the State Theatre up at the corner of Walcott Street, and that they had 2 films, and they would exchange the films at intervals. Someone would rush up and give you the other one. So 2 good films for one night. It was a week's entertainment.
Sometimes you'd have to wait a while because they hadn't arrived. And you'd do that about an interval, I think.
Yeah.
And you'd think, oh gosh, and you'd have to wait, and all of a sudden he's here.